Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some highlights from a 10-4 climb that I had in the Open Grade League with a Force Palm Lucario. Lucario is a very glassy Pokemon, however it has an unbelievably good moveset with Legacy Force Palm, Thunder Punch, and Shadow Ball, so it has coverage for just about everything. Now, in the back, I'm going to need some Pokemon that have a bit more bulk, so I have the ever-trusty Shadow Feraligatr as a safe switch, and the newly released Galarian Corsola as the closer. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at Force Palm Lucario climbing from 3,000 to 3,100 ELO. Tough lead in the first match, Lucario versus Gastrodon, so we get to immediately pivot out into Feraligatr. Feraligatr can throw instantly, it is going to be on good timing. Speaking of timing, the opponent throws on alignment, giving an entire free Shadow Claw to the Feraligatr, and now out comes Sand Slash. I'm going to throw 6 and CMP Tide to the Drill Run. While this will not be enough to KO, I'm more than happy just to let this go at this point, and then I can just get a Force Palm head start on Lucario. But the opponent made a big mistake. They Ice Punch baited, I get the farm down, and I win switch without having to give up a shield. In comes the Gastrodon. In a rare moment, I actually get DRE, so I'm able to get that last second Hydro Cannon as the Mud Slap damage connects, and at this point, I'm just in a completely one position. Earth Power is going to connect, my opponent is going to switch into Drapion, and this is another thing that's amazing about Lucario's typing. It's great at shutting down Drapion. A lot of other fighters are still taking neutral damage from Poison Sting, whereas Lucario, due to the Steel subtyping, is in no danger of being farmed down. I get to go for a Thunder Punch and a farm down. In comes the Gastrodon, Force Palm shredding through the Gastrodon, but I saved a move on the Corsola. The opponent wasn't able to catch, so Corsola gets to knock out with a Nightshade, and that is a good game. Moving to the next match, Lucario versus Dewgong, unbelievably good lead. Opponent is going to save switch to Malamar, and I'm going to respond with Feraligatr. I am pretty behind on energy here. Malamar is going to be firing off a foul play, and I'm going to look to commit the shield and farm up quite a bit with the Feraligatr. I'm going to be firing off this Hydro Cannon. Opponent has quite a bit of energy, so they are going to end up committing the shield, and they will be firing off another charge attack. I do decide to go down both shields, and Lucario, it's very, very frail. So without shields, it is a lot more difficult to use. I'm going to be firing off the Hydro. Opponent is going to let this go, and they're probably going to bring in Dewgong to absorb this energy. I'm not going to let them do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bank double Hydro and actually bring in Corsola. Corsola has a positive matchup versus Dewgong. I have Power Gem, which hits for super effective damage. So now, even though I don't have a shield for my Lucario, I have 2 Hydro Cannons loaded on Feraligatr, and that energy goes absolutely everywhere in this meta. Opponent no shields the Power Gem, even though it is super effective, and even debuff, that damage still adds up. In the back is a Azumarill, and because I saved this energy on Feraligatr, this game is just a win. I can fire off the Nightshade purely just to burn the switch clock, and now it's Feraligatr time. Let's unleash some devastation. We throw 1 Shadow Claw in the move, 1 Shadow Claw in the move, consistently throwing on good timing, not allowing them to sneak. And they're very low. They're going to try for the farm down, but because I threw on proper timing, I make a 3rd Hydro Cannon. This Hydro Cannon is going to force a shield. They're at 100 energy, and I can just bring in the Corsola. They send in Dewgong. I commit to the farm down to force their energy because Azumarill cannot one-shot me with a Play Rough, and I have 1 residual on the Lucario. So this game is just over. Opponent realizes it, and they will resign the match. Lucario versus Carbink, unbelievably good lead. Opponent safe switches into low kicks, and they are just core broken to shreds by the Lucario. Lucario is going to fire off the Thunder Punch. That's going to land. Opponent is going to make it to a charge attack, but I resist everything they can throw. And I double resist X-Scissor, so that's not going to do a whole lot of damage. So down goes the low kicks. My backline is very fine into Carbink. In the back, they have Pangoro, and this is a little bit tricky. I do get a lot of damage with the Force Palm, but at this point, this is still just a win. Because I can tank 2 Night Slashes with the Corsola, but not if they boost. No! The Loose Con has arrived. A boosted Pangoro. If they didn't boost, the game was just completely over because I can tank 2 Night Slashes on Corsola and potentially force a shield with the Nightshade, and then up a shield for Feraligatr is just winning. But now I have to hope that I can farm down in 3 Shadow Claws because my Corsola can no longer survive that move, and they survive on 1 HP. Boosted Night Slash does way too much damage, and this game that was completely won is unfortunately going to be lost to a 10% chance boost. And those are always the most frustrating losses. 90% of the time, this game's a win, but unfortunately, this is the 10% where I do end up losing it, as I can't get to enough Hydro Cannons. They still have a shield, and Power Gem KOs for Alligator. We move to the next match, definitely needing some redemption after that very unfortunate boost loss, and we pick up a tough lead, leading into Jumpluff, so I'm going to save switch into for Alligator. Jumpluff is a very good flying type. Jumpluff is a terrible grass type. It is so slow to get to grass moves that I feel comfortable switching in my water type for Alligator. My opponent, after having an energy ball shielded, realizes this is now a losing matchup for them, so they're forced to switch out into the Dunsparce. But this is great for me. Not only am I baiting out the Dunsparce, but I'm going to get a shield advantage out of this as well. Opponent does throw on alignment, was something I noticed a lot in the 3000 ELO bracket this morning. A lot of people throwing on alignment. Here, I'm going to get to another Hydro Cannon, and this Hydro Cannon is going to deliver a knockout unless they give up the final shield. They're going to bank some energy and send back in the Jumpluff, and now I get to bring in Corsola. Corsola can't quite one-shot with a Power Gem. Opponent is running Acrobatics, so interestingly enough, they're not even running Aerial Ace. But I am still more than happy just to save the shield for the Lucario. I am fully trusting in Lucario to win this game for me. After I tank this move, if I survive it, I'm sending in the Lucario to go for a Force Palm farm down, as energy on Lucario will always go very far. What is that third Pokemon? It's Wigglytuff. I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back Thunder Punches. Opponent switches out into the Dunsparce trying to catch a close combat, but I don't have close combat. Instead, I just get to shield, farm all the way down, and this game is just completely over because I have the back-to-back Thunder Punches. The Charm goes through, but it's not going to do enough damage. I'm more than happy to absorb that hit, and now I can fire off another Thunder Punch. This Thunder Punch does not KO. There's a 1 HP survive from the Wigglytuff. But Corsola is not in Charm range, and they're in Astonish range, so I get the double resisted Astonish farm down, and we take the win. Picking up a pretty decent lead in the next match, Lucario against Qwilfish. Qwilfish is a Pokemon that we saw a ton in the Remix meta, but not as commonly in the Open Great League as Drapion is available. But nevertheless, much like the Drapion matchup, this is going to be a good one for Lucario, as they have no fast move pressure here, so as long as I have shields to hide behind, I'm in a good spot. I land a Thunder Punch, get a farm down, in comes Feraligatr. Feraligatr, the Shadow Claw does not KO. High rank Lucario putting in work, forcing the shield, and I'm going to quickly switch into Feraligatr. My opponent is very close to the back-to-back here. They are one off. I decide to let this go. I am fully committing to two-shielding my Galarian Corsola and trusting in that to win the game. Hydro Cannon is going to pick up the knockout. In the back is Moltres, and this looks dire. But let me tell you something about Galarian Corsola. Up a shield, Galarian Corsola can just strictly win this matchup, because I can make it to 2 Power Gems. So at this point, my opponent's only hope is to call a bait. I don't bait, I land the Power Gem, and they're just going to concede the match when they realize that I can now Astonish them down. Tough lead for Lucario in the next match, leading into Gastrodon, but this is why we have the Feraligatr. Feraligatr going to farm up to the Ice Beam here. Ice Beam will threaten a KO. I go for the Hydro Cannon, bait, and they call the bait. Devastating for Feraligatr. They have to Brave Bird here. If they Ancient Power, which they do, that's not going to KO. A massive mistake from my opponent, and now I get to take advantage, unleashing the Hydro Cannon, knocking out the Moltres, and flipping Switch advantage. And having Switch advantage is so nice here, because now I get to align Corsola onto this Gastrodon. Gastrodon is going to go for the Earth Power. Earth Power going to be shielded up. I'm farming up to the back-to-back Nightshades. Let's put some pressure on my opponent. So I will fire off the Nightshade, grab the shield, go for Nightshade number 2, but I do lose the CMP tie there. As Galarian Corsola, it's monstrously bulky, so it does not have a lot of attack. Opponent gets the defense drop. That is unfortunate. Nightshade is going to land in the back. It's Primeape, and unfortunately, this game will be a loss. I needed health on Corsola to win this game, and I don't have it anymore, so I'm not going to waste anyone's time, and I'm going to resign the match. We move to the next match, leading Lucario into Jumpluff. Again, Jumpluff, not good versus Feraligatr, so I'm very fine to just send in the Feraligatr, and I'm always going to shield. Things only get tricky if they successfully Aerial Ace bait, but they're actually going to go for an Energy Ball. I'm going to farm up quite a bit, and I wait the turn to make it look like I'm full sending here. But instead, I'm going to bait with the Hydro Cannon. I'm farming up, going for the Ice Beam, and it looks like that is a CMP tie here. The Ice Beam is going to be shielded. They're firing off more energy, and I decide, you know what? I'm just letting Feraligatr go, and this is when can they bait? Oh no, trainer. Now here, they have a high incentive to try and catch out of this matchup. So I'm going to build up to the Ice Beam, wait the turn, there's the switch out into the Sand Slash, and I'm just going to bring in Lucario and basically just sacrifice the Lucario at this point. In hindsight, I should have brought in the Corsola so I could preserve the Lucario, but in the moment there, I was behind on energy, and I knew I had to save the Ice Beam, so instead, unfortunately, Lucario ends up getting sacrificed there due to the misplay on my part. Now I can bring in the Corsola. Corsola is going to be hit with a Drill Run. I will get the farm down. My opponent should bring in their Jumpluff instantly here to force my energy. But instead, they actually end up waiting their clock and they bring in Quagsire. But Quagsire is way too far behind on energy to have a chance to even participate in this game, as I get to fire off the back-to-back Nightshades, and this is just going to straight up KO. Quagsire not going to survive. They know I have the Ice Beam, which is going to nuke their Jumpluff, so they will concede the match. Tough lead again in the next match, leading Lucario into Gastrodon. Lucario definitely had some tough leads to work with in these sets, but overall, I feel like the team performed amazingly well. Here, the opponent, again, another Gastrodon throwing on alignment. They go for the Earth Power. I'm going to shield. Opponent now going to send in Dugong. Dugong is, of course, going to be a wall to energy from the Feraligatr, but I don't think anyone told Feraligatr that, as I'm going to be able to output some serious pressure into this Dugong, and they can't farm me down. They're going to be forced to throw energy. They do just that. I'm very okay letting this go, because now I can get an energy lead on the Lucario. And I take very little damage to get this energy lead, as my Lucario is basically still full HP. And if they send back in the Gastrodon, I can just look to pivot out into the Corsola. There's the Gastrodon, I send in the Corsola. In the back is going to be a Shadow, Alolan Sand Slash, so they're running Mud Slap, Double Ice, a pretty common team. Corsola, Nightshade, massive damage onto the Alolan Sand Slash, and this game is so over. They're going to fire off an Ice Punch. Corsola does not care. They're going to make another Ice Punch, but Corsola still does not care. Sand Slash in absolute shambles. It gets farmed all the way down. In comes the Gastrodon, and they're going to shield this, as Nightshade would do quite a lot of damage, but now it's Lucario's time for revenge. Lucario's led into these Mud Slappers all day, and now it gets to flip the script, making the Shadow Ball, knocking out the Gastrodon, and taking the win. We move to the next match, Lucario on the lead versus Dragapult. Oh my goodness, bad lead for Lucario. The save switch to Feraligatr. Opponent responds with a Toxapex, and we are in a pretty tough position here. So far, we're basically counted on the lead and the swap, but we've won a lot of games so far where we were counted on the lead and the swap, so let's see what we can do. Opponent is going to throw energy with the Toxapex. They go for the Brine. They do go for an undercharge on the Brine, and I'm going to be able to make it to a Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon is going to connect. It's not going to do a ton of damage. I'm going to bring in the Lucario. Opponent is going to end up throwing on alignment and giving me an entire Force Palm for free. My goal is to get them low and then snipe with Astonish here, but they survive. No, they make it to a Brine, and that is valuable health lost that I did not want to lose. If I had been more precise in my gameplay there and switched slightly sooner, they couldn't have gotten that move. In the back is a Azumarill, so they're running Dragapult and two very bulky water types, and I think, unfortunately, it's unlikely that I'm going to be able to win this game. I will commit the shield. Opponent just going for Ice Beams because they realize that I'm just rapidly running out of health here. They're going to fire off their energy. It'll be another Ice Beam, and I can build up to the back-to-back moves, switch into Lucario, and I have back-to-back Thunder Punches ready for the Dragapult. If the Dragapult double shields here, thinking I have a Shadow Ball as well, that is my win con. But if they know where my energy's at, which they do, I just can't win at this point, because my opponent can just astonish me into a range where I'm getting farmed down by everything they have, and that's exactly what they're going to do. The opponent should have gone for a CMP tie here, but realistically, it's not going to matter because I'm just too low, and the difference in the game is the Brine that if I was more precise with when I swapped, my opponent wouldn't have got there. We move to the final match, leading into an Annihilate. I save switch for Alligator, they answer with a Dunsparce, and this is just not an answer at all. Dunsparce, especially down energy, gets absolutely thrashed by Feraligatr. I will actually decide to commit the first shield, because my goal here is I want to play the 1-2 shield. because I know Feraligatr wins the ones even on even energy, so being up energy by shielding once, I can force both of their shields or switch advantage, and either one is very okay for me. So they're going to land the Drill Run. Feraligatr is going to make the Hydro Cannon, as it always does. This will knock out, so the opponent is forced to give up the final shield, and now I can send in Lucario. I have the shield for the Drill Run, and I get an energy advantage, so I can outpace the Annihilate and make it to a Shadow Ball, because Shadow Ball is easily going to one-shot the Annihilate farming up, but they make a sick catch, catching the Shadow Ball onto Miltank, and this could get tricky. Miltank now 4 away from the Thunderbolt. I'm going to farm up till 1 before the Shadow Ball and get a catch of my own, catching onto the Corsola. So this is going to be a bit of a tricky game for my opponent to play out, because they will have to keep in mind that I'm very, very close to a Shadow Ball on Lucario. They're firing off Thunderbolt after Thunderbolt with the Miltank, farming up with the Corsola, and I do not want to risk them making another move, so I'll fire off the Power Gem. They kind of have to throw instantly here if they want to KO the Corsola, but if they overfarm to try and have residual energy to deal with Lucario, then I just KO them with a Nightshade. So the opponent was in a really tough spot there in the end game, where I was very close to ghost damage everywhere, and unfortunately, there was just not a way out. All in all, I feel like Force Palm Lucario actually ends up being a very interesting core breaker in these final few days of the max out meta. It does the stuff you want fighters to normally do, completely crushing Dunsparce, Alolan Sandslash, and also being a fighting steel type, also completely obliterating the poor Galarian Moltres. But I think what's interesting is due to the steel subtyping, it's also a lot stronger against the poisons. So against something like a Drapion or actually Toxapex as well, it does have a very, very favorable matchup against Toxapex, and it's something that can completely destroy the Diggersby Toxapex core basically by itself. So overall, I think Lucario actually ends up being a pretty solid meta read for these final few days of the season. Now, it goes without saying, I didn't necessarily see the Pokemon that I was hoping to see with this team. I did go 10-4, so I went very, very positive from about 3,000 to about 3,100 ELO. But overall, I felt like Lucario ended up losing quite a few leads, but the team still kept winning regardless, because either Feraligatr was able to generate some kind of advantage to let Corsola do well on the back, or we were able to flip switch advantage, and the Pokemon they had in back that was weak to Lucario would end up getting destroyed. So overall, I feel like this team worked. I kind of ran it as a laugh, but I exit after playing these couple sets honestly feeling way better about Lucario in the Open Grade League than I did before. It's going to be very frail. It has always been very frail, and it always will be, but I do think its coverage is very, very interesting right now, and it can do quite well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely incredible, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.